And kind of piggybacking off of that, I actually got these stats just not long ago in my current role in ministry, is that 80% of individuals that do have some kind of intellectual or developmental disability do have a faith tradition that's important to them. So again, 80%, but they don't often
Yeah.
attend because they don't feel a sense of belonging in their faith community. So how can we, as not just DREs, but as myself, trying to figure out how I can fit into a parish or how I can fit into a community, how can we try to make them feel more connected?
Masses, and I do think that there are ways to express the faith in a more along the lines of how autistics would think, and that's a lot of what I'm kind of thinking through with writing a book and things. So I don't know if that's helpful. It's going to be tough because it's going to be, finding a place that works for them and finding a place that works for other people who really like, loud and music and things at mass can be tough.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I really believe that the Latin Mass, or especially the low rite of the Latin Mass, is a great comfort for people on the spectrum because it's going back to the sacredness and the beauty, but it's not really loud. It's more of you appreciate the silence of the faith, you appreciate the beauty of the rite itself, and it can be a great comfort to those who are on the spectrum and who don't particularly like going to depending on where it is, the traditional mass. As you know, I'm trying to, with this program, not just provide clear teaching for young adults out there, but also I want to try to give whatever resources I can to my brother, young adult autistics out there, because it's not easy to be a young adult with autism, and it's getting harder. So what kind of encouragement or advice would you give to young adults who are just, to be honest, tearing their hair out watching all of these things going on in the church, but also even more than that, young autistics who just feel like they're not welcomed, that they are isolated, and that they don't have a place in the church?
I think that honestly, one of the greatest things for us as autistics, I think, is the sense that we can have community online, because a lot of times in our individual place, we might be like, especially if you're not in a big city, you might be one of five people in your town who's autistic, and just for whatever reason of interest or other things, you don't get along with several of those five. So I think sometimes there are some groups like on Facebook of, like the Catholic Spectrum Geeks group, which are fellow autistics and allows you to have a kind of community with those type of people and kind of understand your faith with fellow autistics rather than just trying to understand it in a small town or wherever where you might be the only Catholic autistic or one of a handful.
I never even heard of that group. That's fascinating.
Yeah, there's several. The one I would say most for people who are autistic, young adults, would probably be Catholic Spectrum Geeks.
Okay.
I don't know if people. There's a whole group of Catholic Geeks groups on Facebook, like a whole kind of
Right.
network of them. And there's one for those on the spectrum with such a name. So.
Oh, that's very good.